And good afternoon, everybody. And thanks for staying in the room for at least another 10 minutes. Title of the presentation, A Unique Gold Company, Southern Gold. Hopefully in 10 minutes' time I will convince you that this is indeed something a little bit different. Basically, we're a Korean-focused company. So why are we unique? We're one of the few companies to be actually active in Korea. And we would be by far the largest foreign company active and operating there. We've got a large ground position. We're seeing some first-class geology, and we are basically walking up to deposits which are drill ready. So yes, we're an explorer, but we also have an element to the story which is about production and development. So it's a little bit unusual for a small cap company. Tight capital structure, 50 million shares on issue, actually just gone up to 55 million. I did a small placement just recently. And we've got a tiny valuation. So as I step through this presentation, just keep in the back of your mind that we have a valuation sub $10 million. We have operations in Korea and Australia. Because this is only a 10-minute presentation, I won't talk too much about Australia. I'll concentrate on the Korean story. And to be frank, that's where we can see a lot of the future growth. So there's a lot of things that will unfold in Korea which I think will surprise the average investor. Australia is important in that there's an asset base there that is valuable, and indeed we have a small operating gold mine there where an open pit is just completed, and we're about to move underground there with the help of hopefully Northern Star, who have a 5-year right to mine there. So we've got more than 16 projects across 2 jurisdictions, and I won't be going into any of these in detail today because it's too short a time period. However, you can see there in the top right-hand side that we have a joint venture with Bluebird Merchant Ventures. And so they're basically their principal asset. They're London Stock Exchange listed. And I would just point out that the valuation for Bluebird on London is higher than ours, and we have the rest of that portfolio on that table there, in addition to what they have in terms of an asset base. So there's a very large disparity in valuations achieved between London and Australian stock exchanges at the moment. What's the strategy? Why are we looking at Korea? Well, fundamentally, it's about the geology. And what we're looking at is targeting sort of a particular part of geology on the sort of northwestern side of the Pacific Rim. It's our view that a lot of money has been raised in Toronto, and we've found a lot of things on the west coast of the United States and South America. And there's a lot being found in the Philippines, Indonesia, through the Pacific islands, if you will. But North Asia is relatively underrepresented when it comes to significant discoveries. So we're looking for something significant, Tier 1 in South Korea, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a moment. So in our end of the spectrum of our business, it's very critical what sort of people you have, and we have a first-class team. So on the exploration side, we've got a small team of geoscientists who are pretty much all ex-Ivanhoe. So the Doug Kerwins, Chris Bowdens and Craig Panthers, these guys are principally epithermal geologist experts. Doug Kerwin is obviously an all-rounder and a well-known, globally recognised geologist. He's found a lot of world-class deposits in his career, and it's a very unusual thing for Doug to be involved in the junior. So we're happy to have him on board, and indeed Doug has a very strong and deep background in South Korea, which is one of the reasons why we're there. On the right-hand side is the project development side, which is what I mentioned before, the London-listed Bluebird group. So we've brought them in to reactivate some of the historic mines and try and get production going in Korea as fast as we can. So these are narrow vein underground gold mining specialists. So they're not gold-plated consultants. They're the complete opposite. They're based in Southeast Asia. It's like a dying art, the narrow vein air leg mining. Not many people can do it these days. This is their bread and butter. So when you're thinking about Southern Gold in Korea, I want you to think that there are actually 2 principal streams to the story. The first one is the orogenic gold projects, where we're trying to get Bluebird to reactivate the old mines that were shut down in the early 70s. And we're in process with that. So for a very small amount of capital, we should be able to get very modest cash flow going, very modest gold pour, and indeed they're aiming to do that by the end of next year. So new production out of Korea is not that far away, which generally surprises people. The second element to the story and perhaps in some ways the more exciting one in terms of blue sky, is the epithermal things that we're seeing in the southern part of the country, and this is where the explorationists come into it. And what we're looking for there is a Hishikari style thing. So going just very briefly to two of those sort of elements. The first one, the joint venture with Bluebird and Gubong. Gubong is a very large system, more than 120 kilometres of underground mine development. We're in the process of dewatering that. It's a very, very big orogenic system. It was one of the biggest gold mines in Korea in its day, but it was shut prematurely. It was not shut for economic reasons. What we have is a system that's more than 5 kilometres long. They principally mine one vein. There's more than 9 veins in the district. We have an exploration target range on one part of one of the veins, which is about 500,000 ounces at 8 grams per tonne. And this is the project which we think is a potential company maker if we can get it restarted. A lot of work to do. Orogenic systems are not that easy to work with, but what we're hoping to do is to dewater, get close to the vein face, and then restart mining. So quite an exciting project. Bear in mind, it's open along strike and open at depth, and in just about every direction. Going to that blue sky part of the story, what we're looking for is the epithermal projects in the southwestern corner of the country. I'll just draw your attention to that little inset map on the top left of that map there. You can see Japan, and there are several projects there in southern Japan, one of which is called Hishikari, which is a world-famous epithermal project, or mine. And going to that, that's kind of like what we're looking for. So a lot of people ask me, when you say Tier 1, Simon, what do you mean? You know, what's a Tier 1? Well, Hishikari would, in my books, fit that category. It produces around 200,000 ounces a year at an average grade of 30 grams per tonne at the moment. I think the life of mine average grade since 1985 is about 40 grams per tonne. We're talking narrow veins, so you can see there a photograph of the vein. It's about 1 metre across. There are some samples there of the bonanza zones of that mine. And you can see there that it's got gold grades around 5,000 grams per tonne gold and 14,000 silver. So these are spectacular grades. The main takeaway for you is that these systems are relatively small. So the veins are only perhaps 700-800 metres in strike extent and only a few hundred metres in vertical elevation. So they're not massive deposits, but they're extremely high grade. And that's what we're looking for in Korea. So just a quick couple of examples. Dokon is one that we picked up just recently. You can see there some of the historic results that have been returned from the veins that are in that system. So there you have, low-lying wooded hills and valley fill. We're seeing very high-grade gold and silver, even from our very first pass exploration. So what we essentially have is an exploration play where we're seeing extremely high grades from the very first pass in systems that haven't actually been properly drilled, or in some cases, not drilled at all. So this is pretty unbelievable from an explorationist's point of view, having the opportunity to come to a new system that's never really been properly assessed. Walyu is another example. I've got a cartoon there of the project where we basically went to the other side of the mountain. So this is one which was an old silver germanium mine to the north. And we went to the other side of the mountain, we found an epithermal system there. You can see some examples of the sort of grades that we're getting. Again, very high grade gold and silver. But just the tip of the iceberg in terms of our understanding of the systems at the moment. A lot of people ask me about South Korea. I haven't got much time, so the main takeaway for you is that it's got a lot of infrastructure, there's no royalties, so the fiscal regime is first class. It's a modern first world industrialised nation, so you can pretty much manufacture anything there, and it's a fantastic place to work. So we've got 55 million shares on issue. We're trading around 18 cents, so that gives us a market cap of 10, and we're trading at 3-year lows at the moment. So here we are. We're sub $10 million valuation, full of assets. Last 45 seconds. So why invest in Southern Gold? Really, it's all about this sort of new play in South Korea, which is generally unrecognised, even in the academic field. You could pick up an academic paper that talks about epithermal geology, and very, very few of them will actually identify South Korea as being a destination where these types of deposits are. We've got experts such as Doug Kerwin and Chris Bowden. Chris Bowden did his PhD in that country on the epithermals. And so this is a new, fully evolving, new epithermal district that has not been globally recognised, and we're the first people to go in there. Thanks very much.